Hey everyone, it's Kate. And after a brief hiatus last week to honor Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I am going to sew the neckband onto my child's tee today. When I started this project, I had a really stern talk with myself, and I said that I was going to follow the instructions exactly so that I could show you guys how to make the chai tea according to the instructions that come with the pattern. But it's really not my nature, and so I am making a small adjustment this time. One of the thing that the instructions have you do is leave one of the shoulder seams open and put the neckband on while the shoulder seam is open. But that means you can't do the burrito method for all 4 shoulder seams, which just made me too sad. So I sealed up the neckline, and I will show you how I like to apply neckbands to necklines after they're already sewn up. So let's go over to the ironing board, and I'm going to show you how to prepare the neckband. So I have a short one here. As I explained in the cutting out video, I just used my quilting ruler to cut a big long neckband that was about 1.5 inches wide. Well, it was 1.5 inches wide, but about 30 inches long. So with this mini one, I'm going to show you how you prepare the whole long one. So you first fold it in half, wrong sides together, hot dog wise, as my photographer says. So you're really just making a crease in the center, which you will use in the future, but then you open it up. This is really, this rayon knit really behaves. Like when you press it, it says, okay, I will stay that way. So then you want to fold the 2 long edges toward that center crease that you just created. So they're both each going halfway. This is not a very good pin. So, and as you watch me do these videos, you'll see that I love pinning things to the ironing board with either glass head pins or these. They're called perfect pins, and they don't melt if you touch them with an iron. I learned that, oh gosh, I just caught my pin in my iron. Good job. I learned this method when I was learning how to teach people to learn to sew. And I love it because I don't burn my fingers anymore. All right, so after I pressed the 2 long edges toward the center, I'm going to remove the pins, and I'm going to fold it one more time. It will kind of want to go that way, and just press it. You're just kind of showing the neckband the way that you want it to act when you apply it to the neckline. All right, so as I mentioned, I have sewn my neckline together into a closed loop. And so you might think that I, at this point, would sew my neckband together into a closed loop like this. But I don't, because every knit stretches a different amount. And so whenever I sew my neckband into a loop and then sew it to the neckline, it's always the wrong length. And I have to rip, and it's really no fun. So what I do, and I'll show you on the actual neckline in a sec, is I pin the neckband to the neckline and just stretch it a little bit. So a medium amount. So this is not stretched, and this is super stretched. So somewhere in the middle, I just stretch it a little bit as I pin it to the neckline. And I'm going to bring the t-shirt over. So I've done the first row of stitching because it would be really boring for you to watch me do it. But this is the center back, and I left a tail and started sewing about a few inches away from the center back, and I pinned first, and I just stretched the neck. The neck band is supposed to be a little shorter than the neckline, and I stretched it a little bit, pinned it, stretched it a little bit, pinned it every few inches, and then I used a really narrow zigzag and sewed it to the neckline. You can see that it's the right side of the neckband to the wrong side of the neckline for your first go around. And then I stopped about an inch from the center back and back stitched, and I have these two tails. And some of you might do the same thing when you're binding a quilt. I know I do. So you want to figure out the right spot, and I figured out the right spot off camera because it's a little bit fussy. So you want to figure out a good spot where if you sew your neckband right sides together, it's going to have to stretch a tiny bit to fit with the neckline. So I made little snips at that spot, and I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and sew that together, and then trim it, and then I'm going to sew the rest of the neckband to the neckline. Here we go. I took the pin out, so now I have to get my snips lined up. And I'm still using a 0.5 millimeter wide and 3 millimeter long zigzag at this point. So I'm just gonna, oh, of course it's making a funny noise. And I will backstitch. I should have backstitched at the beginning, but. Okay, so I sewed the two edges, right sides together, and I trimmed it. I'm going to trim one more thread and show you that now I have the neckband is sewn together approximately at the center back, and I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch from the edge and close this up. And here we go. I have a snazzy new foot for top stitching, which I'm not really doing right now, but it still works. Let me get my needle down, go up, over. And I have my dual feed engaged. If you have dual feed on your machine, you should have that engaged or use a walking foot. All right. So now I'm just going to show you. So this is closed up, and we're ready to bring the neckband over to the right side and top stitch it in place. So you've got these folds. So you're going to fold it and then fold it over the previous stitching. So I'm just enclosing this raw edge that I created. And I am going to pin it in place. And I really do prefer pinning perpendicular, but you can also pin parallel to the seam. Just take your pins out as you get to them. And so see how nice and clean that looks? Can't see anything from the other side. And I really like this method of putting on a neckband because you're going to top stitch from the top. And that way you can make sure that everything looks great. I am going to go over to the sewing machine and just top stitch this few inches so you don't have to watch the whole neckline, but the whole neckline would be just like that. So let me head back over and then I'll show you what it looks like. I sew on a lot of different machines, and this is my first time using this kind of top stitching foot. I really do prefer to use, I'm going to do a 3 millimeter long straight stitch for this top stitching with the walking foot / dual feed foot. So some of my machines have a foot with a little blade on it that you can use for top stitching. This one has a little lip on it that you can kind of just tuck your edge, your seam in, and make sure that you stay the equidistant from the edge. And I did move my needle a little bit so that it was really close, because that's how I like to top stitch. And even though I'm using a straight stitch, this neckline really will have a little bit of stretch to it. I think because the straight stitch is so long, because it's a 3 millimeter, and I'm just gonna do a really quick back stitch. And also the neckline is pretty big. It doesn't have to like go over stretch over your head. So I'm going to bring it back over to the overhead camera and show you what it looks like when it's sewn down. Can you see that okay? A little bit higher? Yeah, so yeah, especially with a nice top stitching foot, you can really get a nice look on your neckline. So that's it for today. Next week, or not next week, yes, next week, today's Wednesday, next Wednesday, I'm going to put the sleeves on, which are super easy, and show you how to sew the hem on the chai tea, and we'll be done. On Saturday, I have a special guest, Karen Winther, who is a local quilter, and she's going to show us how to do big stitch quilting, hand quilting on all kinds of different projects. She's amazing. She brought in a whole bunch of samples, and I think we're going to have a great time. The Saturday after next Wednesday, when I do my hems, I'm going to show you how to make woven napkins, and that will be our little palette cleanser before we start a big series on sewing with wool. So in October, we'll be doing a lot of stuff with wool, and that will be really fun. So thanks for watching, and I will see you on Saturday at 10:30. Bye-bye.